So I'm delighted to welcome Iñigo Aranzabal, former senior partner at Carney, where Iñigo was a member of the Global Partner Selection Committee. He was head of the Strategic Operations Practice in EMEA, Global Operations Board member, head of the EMEA Strategic Accounts team, and is now an advisor to the partners at BCG and an advisor to one of the leading asset management firms in Europe, Aria Capital Partners, who specialize in renewables and sustainable infrastructure. Iñigo, welcome.
It's my pleasure, Mike.
Great to have you here. So we're really looking at some of these trends that are disrupting consulting today. And I know, Iñigo, you have identified 5 key trends. And so we'd love to look at those trends and the implications of them with you. Could we start, Iñigo, with, tell us a little bit, please, about the evolution of consulting teams. How is the makeup of them changing, and what is the impact of that?
Traditionally, we would have a relatively hierarchical structure. Actually, some of the consulting firms would use military terminology to describe the different roles in an engagement. So you had the partner, principal, engagement managers, and then the associates, consultants, business analysts. All of them would come from a similar profile. They would be either engineers or business administration. Today, this has changed drastically. The teams tend to be flatter, so not so many layers in the team. You would also find that for specific assignments within the team, you would find new profiles of people who would bring expertise in analytics, or who would bring any particular development of software that may be needed. So you could see today consulting firms delivering specific pieces of software for their end customers for a given necessity that you could not find in the marketplace. I witnessed recently, and I was invited to a Christmas dinner of BCG, where it was around 650 people in Madrid. I would not recognize a consulting firm from the people who were attending that dinner. I mean, you would see very young people. I mean, some of them wearing earrings or with tattoos that you would never see historically in a consulting firm, who were there because they were part of those analytics, software design, communication. I mean, there's a number of things that are added to the solutions that the consulting firms are delivering today. So it's no longer, decks with recommendations. Today you see more implementation, you see more commitment to leave things working behind.
Do you feel, Iñigo, that there is an intolerance of just stopping at recommendations from clients, that they're expecting really you to be able to be accountable for business outcomes? Or where is the change coming from?
There is always this trade-off between execution and advisory. I mean, you cannot be good at both. And at a given moment of time, I think many of us try to evolve from advisory into execution, and there's always, that possibility, but it's a tough way. And I know that there's also some of, and I guess that's the audience that we have today, those who have been on the execution side of things and that want to move into advisory. My recommendation is to avoid to treat advisory from the execution perspective and vice versa. The reality is that today the clients expect that you leave something that works, and the solutions, and again, as I said, not papers, but solutions. But they also expect this to be implemented and to be developed further by their execution teams. So it's very important to develop these skills of working in parallel on the what eventually you're going to leave behind, and the how. I mean, how that is going to be implemented and how it is going to be, let's say, future proof, so that eventually there's no turning back or pushback within the teams when it comes to implementing. I mean, we tend to say that you could put everything on paper, black and white. I mean, it's very easy to tell what needs to happen. But today, I think the difference between a good consultant and let's say average consultant is that the good consultants, they deliver things that work and that are future proof.
Why do you think it is that a firm cannot embrace fully both the what and the how, both the advisory and the execution?
Well, I think that there's always this gray line between sharing and doing, and I mean, there's always that temptation, and we know also that companies are evolving towards focusing on the core and outsourcing the rest. So I think we will see more and more situations where some elements that are not core may be outsourced to third parties, and the consulting firms may play a role in that, in some cases an arbitrage role before that particular business is developed, but in some others, I mean, an honest business for them. But I think when it comes to what is core for the business, there must be this separation. I mean, the consultants cannot be the ones who are running the business. That would be a complete disaster, or at least in the situations that I have seen. I mean, I have seen executives who wanted a specific sign from a particular consultant because they knew that their work would be safe with that sign, and that was part of the business in the past. I think is no longer part of the equation, but that's why it's so important that the good consultant works on the why and on the how without pretending to be the one who implements.
Okay, and then can you tell us a little bit about the competitive landscape? How is that changing between sort of the traditional strategy firms and the, if you like, more the boutique or mid-sized firms versus the big four and Accenture?
Well, when I was with Carney, I thought there was only one business, which was the one represented by Carney, Bain, McKinsey, and BCG. And then there was, let's say, other type of services and solutions provided by big fours, and the Accentures of this world, and the likes. And then, I mean, I always knew that there were some boutiques who would specialize in procurement or marketing, and so on and so forth. It was when I left Carney and I started receiving calls from big fours and eventually also from BCG that I did not expect, but it happened, and it made all the sense for me in that particular moment of time. But I also saw that there were other players, and friends put me in contact with some of them. I mean, there's companies who are organized globally with a network of consultants in different countries. All of them are former consultants with the big firms, but are people who want to have a different type of life. So they enjoy being engaged in consulting jobs. They have passion for the profession, but they no longer want to have or to be in structures, let's say hierarchical structures, where you need to work 11 or 12 months a year, 12 to 14 hours a day. So there's companies who put in contact talent who came out of the big firms and who structure consulting jobs with a significant amount of people. So there is a growing business, I would say, for alternative models. I think the big players, they still have a say when it comes to benchmarking, all these data scientists structures and the like. So I think they will always have the best position for that type of work. But when it comes to specific jobs where you need particular expertise, well, there's always ways of structuring a winning team that could eventually compete even against the big firms with a different profile of people. I mean, I do most of my work with firms like Eden McCallum, or where basically they follow that type of structure, and it's quite fun. I mean, they call me when for a particular thing where I'm not competing against BCG. It may be a project anywhere in the world, and I enjoy working that way. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, for the specific engagement, you work as much as you have to work. But then once the engagement is over, I mean, you don't need to work on the follow-on, or perhaps it's an obvious, if there's an obvious one, you would be engaged in that, but you can move to the next thing. No? And many people these days, they want to work on projects, not on, let's say, on these hierarchical structures that at the end of the day, you need to devote a lot of time to maintain. And I mean, when I was a leader in Kearney, I would spend more time than what I wanted in that. No, so I'm really enjoying these new ways of doing things. So there's a lot of potential business. I mean, for people who have expertise these days, that can be structured in a way that is not the traditional way.
And how about success-based models? How is pricing models? How have they changed?
Well, this is quite an interesting question, and this is, I guess, the 1 million question. Honestly, I don't like success-based deals, because I think at the end of the day, I mean, and it's in our contracts and our consulting contracts. I mean, if we are not doing a good job, I mean, the client can fire us, and obviously we have created a mess if we are not doing a good job. I mean, it should not be the situation. I mean, I don't remember any case of not continuing a job in my entire career, but that's the point. I mean, the risk is covered when you try to engage a consultant on a fee that would be based on a result. And back to what I said before, where the final execution is not your responsibility, you get into endless discussions about whether you have delivered or you have not delivered, blaming the executive for not having done what I mean you have designed, and so on and so forth. And if you get to that situation, it's because you have not aligned the incentives with the particular role of the consultant. Having said that, I think I'm very much in favor, particularly, I mean, if you have the balance sheet to support that, to prove the concept. And I think this is gaining a lot of traction in the industry. I mean, there's the first job with a customer typically is a co-investment, and I insist it must be a co-investment. So there must be money on the table from the customer side, and there must be effort from the customer side, so dedicated team members. But on the other side, yeah, you can put part of your fees at risk, because if you are confident with what you are offering, you know that at the end of the day, you are going to deliver, the team is going to deliver, and if you are focusing on both the why, the what, and the how, the delivery would be good and the continuation would be well structured. So I think we will see more. Well, we are already seeing that more and more of that. In the old days of Carney, I mean, I remember contracts that were 100% contingent that ended in lawsuits at the end of the day, because I mean, some of them were big teams for a long period of time, no? And you know, getting to those particular situations is very difficult to turn around. You may end years and years until the management of that company changes without working with that company because of that, no? And I think to me, I see that instead of hedging the risk, these let's say success-based engagements are putting or adding additional risk to the project rather than hedging it. So I'm more in favor of putting some skin on the game and sharing and co-investing. We will hear more and more of that. The consultant is not a partner. The consultant is not an enemy either. The consultant is someone with whom you need to establish a collaboration framework, so that eventually your incentives are aligned with his incentives or their incentives. I think that is the game. That is the trick.
Do you think, Iñigo, that clients will increasingly just go because they're driven by procurement and CFOs and they want to know where they stand? Do you think increasingly this trend is just set to continue regardless for fixed price contracts?
Well, procurement is also changing, and you know, one of my hats is also in that particular area with CPONet. I mean, one of the things that the consultants are now developing with our clients in the procurement area is this concept of collaboration. You know, at the end of the day, the more you talk to your supplier, and honestly, in this case, I mean, we are suppliers. We consultants, we never like to be treated as such, but we like to be treated as collaborators, as what I described before. So I think that this will evolve in that direction. So we will see more and more discussions about again the what, the how, the analytics, what you leave behind, how you structure that, and I think we will have the procurement people more focused on what are the actual differentiators in that regard versus just the price. So it would be more a value equation, which is what consultants like best. So honestly, I think in the short term or mid-term, we may see that there would be situations where price mandates and there would be negotiated rates for the consultants, but I think it's not sustainable. I mean, you cannot judge a consultant on what is the fee per hour. It must be on what is delivered. The point here is that is more difficult to be judged, and you need some specific capabilities to tell what is the difference between one consultant and the other. But honestly, I see, particularly in the big corporations, I see very good category managers for professional services who understand this and who are, I think, doing a good job in that regard.
Iñigo, how about the last trend that you've highlighted, which is the changing makeup of the client base? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think that is very clear. I mean, you just need to take the newspaper and you see what are who are the big players in M&A these days. You know, in the past, you would see the big corporations swallowing their competitors, or corporations who wanted to enter in a new business, who were acquiring a particular company, and then the consultants were there to do the post-merger integration. So I think it was an interesting business. The point is that after that happened, changes were relatively slow in many of the cases. I think, I mean, all of the consultants, we have studies that I think is around 1/3 of those integrations fail. And particularly they tend to fail in the timeline and in the amount of synergies that are eventually delivered. So a typical situation in that those days would be that the consultant is engaged in the preparation of the merger or the PMI, and then 2 years after or 3 years after, when things were not going the direction that was expected, they were engaged in finding the solutions or capturing those synergies. Today, the players are different. Today, we have investors who are not, let's say, companies who may have, let's say, a different approach to integration. These investors tend to be ruthless if compared to the old companies, no, or the traditional companies. So you see more and more pressure from the beginning. Even the PMIs are more focused on the synergies, the value, on sustainability. I mean, this is critical today. Is how you secure that you will have the right people engaged and that eventually you can manage that properly. But then when it comes to capturing the synergies, they want them immediately. I mean, they would not expect, they would not wait for the 100 years, 100 days for the CEO. They would put a lot of pressure. So this is also creating a significant business for the consultants. So they are engaged earlier in the process, and they are engaged with, I would say, more intensity in this M&A. And I mean, as I said, I mean, there's more M&A than ever, new players. So I think it's the business, from what I have described with the evolution, what is changing, the relationship models with the customers, and also these new players coming into the game, somehow enlarging the pie, I think makes this industry very, very appealing.
I was just in concluding, I was curious, would you have grounds for optimism for the consulting industry now over the next few years, or do you think it's going to be quite disruptive and you know, consulting's due for a shakeout?
I think 10 years ago, many would talk about an end game where the big fours would abandon, let's say, the accounting business and would focus on consulting, and they would develop in the analytics space, and they would take over the 3 bigs or the 4 bigs. It is not happening, and the big companies, the big firms, are growing 2 digits and 2 digits, high 2 digits. I think that we saw that there was a flat business around 10 years ago, with most of the business in North America and Asia not developing at the path and at the pace that was expected. But today we see that that's changing. I mean, the business is growing because it's different. So all these solutions-oriented business that is not occupied by the big fours, is also occupied by the traditional high value-added consulting firms, is making the pie bigger and bigger. So I think I'm very, very optimistic, and I would I mean, but encourage everyone to, if you have a passion for this, to join. And it may be difficult at the beginning, but this is a profession that you need to learn, and once you learn it, I mean, the basics are quite simple.
Iñigo, as always, it's a great pleasure to see you, and thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike, for inviting me. Thank you.